Friday is the last day of March 2023. Y'all, I will just say, as a young, I'm 33, so I don't know if that matters to people, but I have definitely not seen more than 33 years of this world. But I can tell you that the concept of time does not get any slower the further along that you get in this life. Um, So, welcome though. This is where I go live on Fridays. It's, kind of me, my commitment to, my own brand and but to really to y'all of, I'm here as a resource for people who are interested in getting their mental health prioritized. My background, I don't want anyone to be scared by the addiction specialist. Really, all that means is that I have a specialized form of training and exposure within certain the addiction realm of dealing with substance abuse. And but specifically, I think this is a very interesting point for people because I do so much that like, okay, what do you really do, Sarah? So I took my training within working in the traditional, what we know in terms of addictions is substance abuse. But I turned that more towards and aligned it with my own need, which would be for food addiction. So people who followed my journey on Instagram, which is RightSize Perspective, that is my personal accountability and my health journey to applying what principles and recovery tools and resources that I know and I provide to those who struggle with addiction to substances. And but I've wanted to make sure that they worked. I really wanted to make sure, like, okay, if I'm giving this recommendation to people, one, can I uphold it? Is it possible? And two, does it work? Like, am I just telling people, like, okay, box or like practice breathing, practice, and let's reframe that, right? I needed to become and really determine my own testimony. So that is where my addictions background is really useful to people, is honestly just through right now it's just through my story and how helping people realize that it is possible to recover, whether you're addicted to drugs, whether you're addicted to gambling, to sex, to but mental health is the crux of addiction. So that's where I don't think a lot of people get kind of thrown off by the addiction of like, what are you talking about in mental health? They sometimes they don't correlate, but a lot of times they do. And that's really that's why I put it up there, is because we can become addicted to just about anything. So that's kind of just a little bit of a background on me. Today being the last day of March, right? This whole time thing, I feel like I was so prepared for March and being like productive. Yeah. And I saw such an increase, which is a good thing. I saw an increase in, the amount of sessions that I had, the amount of work I did, but it really kind of ended up pissing me off because I was up against my own expectation. So what I wanted to talk a little bit about today is our relationship with time. And time is passing very quickly. I think March of 2023, right? This is the year, this is the third year of us experiencing the COVID life. And you would think that, okay, we're gonna check in on it every year. No, but this third year I feel like is pretty significant because it's the first year that we're really kind of reintegrating back into what life looks like after COVID. And as one of my life got turned on so many different directions, as did everyone else's. But one of the biggest things that I feel like I have not really been able to gather myself from is just how all of this change presents and how we plan to move forward. A lot of times when we plan, so I just posted something to my story on Instagram and Facebook about, a nice, pretty picture of like us making a plan. We're riding a bike, we're making this plan. And then you zoom out a little bit and you see the actual terrain of the path that you're about to go down. And it's, it's hit with all of these variables of hills, of sharp turns. And I think that's a really great visual of what planning as a skill is really supposed to, how it's presented to us, and then how it correlates with success in whatever it is that you're doing. I'm going to talk a little bit more specifically just about our plan in life and how we maintain our plan of self-care and how we make a plan moving forward. But I think that that concept of time is a very big indicator of how we're actually planning realistically. And realistically or relevant to where it is that we're going. And what I mean by that is, so how many people have actually you said yo, time is going so fast. I have so many things to do. I have so much I have to accomplish. I am the poster child for saying that, at least in my world. I'm so much time, right? And what I end up doing to myself is I put so much extra pressure on myself to perform and to really to try to succeed, when a lot of that feeling of time moving too fast is really dependent on me taking a step back and slowing my brain down. Our planning skills have become more based in control and we have to get this done, that we have to do this. Yes, I'm all about discipline, but that forms over time. And if we sabotage our own process of planning because we're so stringent upon, in focusing to a toxic and unhealthy, I don't really like to use the word toxic a whole lot, but to an unprecedented standard of time and of rigid discipline, then we decrease the amount of sustainability that we have in our life. And I'm not going to go, that can be a little bit more of a subjective conversation, but what I really wanted to focus on is, how are your plans relevant, and are they based in what and where you're actually starting right now? Because a lot of the times we get caught up in a world of vision. We have to, I have my vision board right here, and it has more of these grandiose things that I want in life that I'm very capable of attaining. But at one point, I didn't have that full belief that those were attainable. And so I think it's very important that when we set goals for ourselves, when we set visions, that we maintain a visual of the goal in the long term, but that we have to make sure that we come back to the beginning point, not to humble ourselves, not to just give ourselves reality checks, although those are quite helpful, but really to make sure that we set appropriate standards in the steps that it takes to be able to get to where it is that we're going. So I'm going to give you an example, right? And I hope, you won't know who I'm talking about, but the person who knows themselves knows who I'm talking about. So I had a client this week, and we talked about all the exposure to the different plans and to the different programs that are out there. We've got all these challenges, and everyone in entrepreneurship in terms of marketing, we're forming these challenges, which I have my own. It's a sleep challenge, though. It's how can focusing on quality sleep versus quantity sleep really start to change your life? You can check it out on the app. And that way, or my website, and you can download the app and you can start that sleep challenge to really see how that changes your perspective of time and how you feel. But when all of these other challengers are coming up, okay, what's the best one? How do I get started? What's the best one for me? And where my program and what I'm trying to promote when it comes to mental health is how you prioritize and determine what works best for you with using the insight and the information from everyone else around you. That's what I love most about perspective, is that because it really, it helps and it requires you to think about truly what works best for you. There's no one specific way to get to the goal that you are attempting to complete. It's just a matter of figuring out what are the steps that are based off of the life and the plan that you set. Now, something that I also, which I put on my story alongside that plan, is what I tell my clients is that the skill of planning is best used when the plan goes to shit. Excuse my language, but we cuss around here. The skill of planning is best used when the plan goes to shit. You can plan and you can be one of the best planners, event organizers, which I am not. I'm like, that's a lot of coordination for me. You can be the best predictor of, and we need those people. We need the people who are going to be able to predict, like, okay, this is what needs to happen. This is what and how it's going to go. But if you don't have the skill of improvisation, of your planning skills don't match to the high stress reality that the plan may go awry, and you have to learn how to pivot, you're not going to be able to be resilient within your long-term goals. You're not going to be able to sustain with what it takes to stay in the game. Stamina. If you're an athlete, this is why training, and when people who are not athletes or not in the fitness world, when they look at the fitness world, it seems like it's all about just practice, practice, practice. And it is, because you're practicing and you're training for the game. Because if you don't practice and expand your stamina outside of the game, then the thing that really matters, you're not going to be able to sustain with your respiratory system. If you've got an injury, you're not going to be able to recover from that injury if you just try to go right back into the game and not go to therapy and not go to physical therapy, right? So when we're looking at life planning, when we're looking at recovery from mental health and just what that kind of treatment plan looks like, that treatment plan has to evolve. That treatment plan has to take into account the variables of life that sometimes we're going to have a COVID situation. I don't know how many people can raise their hands for this, but how many people had a plan of what 2020 was going to look like? And then it got completely thrown off because of this little virus. There's something that it's not even a little virus, it's a big one, but something that you couldn't see happen, and it completely changed the course of your life. I know it can't just be me. I'm pretty sure it was me and the people that I was seeing at the time as clients, and the majority of the world. Unless someone did this intentionally, no one knew that something like that was going to happen. And one of the hardest things for people was to deal with what unexpected turns came during that time. And really, the RightSize Perspective program, not only does it take into account mental health, but it really takes into account, like, how do you build the resiliency? How do you start to see life as the training program? And I don't mean like, existentially, like, we're in the Matrix. If you want to see it that way, you can. But your life, your day-to-day things, they may seem mundane, but they're actually very impactful for how you sustain in life. If you are going all in on, these big projects at work, if you haven't noticed, you have this drop off at the end. We're exhausted, right? That also then now takes time to rebuild that stamina back up for you to be able to go further. And I really want people to, try to understand, when it comes down to taking care of your mental health, getting and going to therapy is more about getting a perspective that you can't see, of being able to notice the things that really matter that you're already probably doing. And if you're not doing them, then it's really just a matter of paying attention to what you are doing to be able to start to grow this extra energy and this resiliency that you have, and for you not to feel like it's going to get the best of you. So when those unexpected, interactions, or I don't know if you guys have ever ran in the grocery store and randomly you just see someone who's mad, and then it kind of preoccupies your mind for the rest of the day. Those are unexpected events that actually do take energy from us, and they take away from your focus on what it is that you're doing. Your plan was just to go to the grocery store, get a couple of things, not go to the grocery store and experience someone else's chaos while getting your things and then now leaving with that on your brain. And a lot of the times, sometimes people, we don't really connect with those things, but sometimes we do. Sometimes they remind us and we have these associations that we start to ruminate about. And so therapy, as one resource, but you checking in with yourself, or you having a meditative practice, or you journaling, or you just reflecting, be like, yo, I attached to that. I don't need that in my life. That wasn't part of my plan for the day. Now, if you're not having really a plan for your day, then this may not make sense right away. So when you're starting on your journey, whether it's how to prioritize your mental health, you having a practice of kind of creating just an outline for the day. You don't have to plan your day to the T. My day yesterday was planned to the T, and guess what? It did not go accordingly. I had so many things thrown at me, and I was anticipating a lot more than actually happened. But when some of those things fell off, new things filled in. And a lot of the times our plans, we can't plan for, we over plan, and we actually end up hurting ourselves in the long run because we our brains really don't comprehend the value that we give that. And if we give every single thing value to happen exactly when we need it, exactly when we want it, then we actually end up having more energy taken from us because we now are pissed off or agitated and upset that those things didn't happen. And now we have to cope with those. Whereas if we can adopt this mindset of like, you know what? I really don't have control over just about anything. So my control lies in being able to prioritize what's the next best thing in this plan that went to shit. Because now I get to use my planning skills again to be able to salvage what I can versus be able to have to give up what it is that I want. So I really, a lot of this inspiration for today's talk was because I didn't have time to make a plan for this live today. And that has been a goal of mine because I can ramble and I can go all around the bushes and back around the trees. Most of the time I end up coming back full circle. But because I know my mind is sometimes very overwhelmed by the time I do these talks, having a plan, having an outline to make sure I hit a couple of points, I didn't have time to do that today. I had a meeting till 9:30, and then I think I took like a quick break because I've been sitting in front of the computer already, which I'm not really that used to at this early in the morning. And I really I did not put forth that into the plan to talk with you guys today. But I figured that was probably one of the best lessons, is that for the most part, you can still pull together a very successful outcome going in the direction that you want to go in. I still showed up. I still had something to tell you that's valuable. Hopefully it makes sense. I'm not making maybe like strong, points and takeaway points, but if anything, I'm making you think about how does your relationship one with time? If you can identify that it's moving way too quickly for you, that's your sign to sit back, take a breath, halt. I think last week is when I talked about hungry, angry, lonely, tired. See if you can address one of those needs, because if you can identify you have one of those needs, then your internal thought process is probably a little bit more heightened than it is stable and calm. So your sense of time will start to come back to you and you won't feel as pressured. You won't trigger yourself as much to get distracted in the procrastination cycle. You'll be able to realize like, oh, what's one thing I can do right now? Oh, I can grab a pen and I can write down the 3 top things that I know I needed to get done today, or the things that I wanted to get done today. And so that relationship with time is your indicator. So if it's racing, that's your indicator to stop. That happened to me yesterday. I was like, whoo, I gotta slow down, because you go too fast. 3 years go by and like, what have you accomplished? You're other than being tired. It happens all the time to me too. I'm living this as, I'm giving you guys this. I did a version of it with my own transformation in terms of my health that took me 5 years, right? I'm now looking and I have the variable of comparing myself to like, oh, people lost 100 pounds in 90 days. Why didn't I do that? Because it was not me. I was not supposed to do that. I was taking care of other people. I was a single person with a homeowner at that, with a very challenging house to be able to take care of. I was working on all my relationships. Like I was working on the inner work. I was healing. My goal was not to just lose weight. My goal was to prioritize my health. My goal was to take care of myself because I knew that in my line of work, I was not going to make it. I was not going to sustain in the healthcare field if I didn't figure out how to build a lifestyle that worked for me. So now that I'm venturing more into, I've been in entrepreneurship, but I didn't have like health was my primary focus for myself. Now building my business and scaling my business is my primary focus. I am in this crux, in this trap of like, I need to get this content done. I need to get this content out. But it's not a need. I'm listening to myself. It's like, it's not a need. You guys are going to follow me whether you want to or not. If I don't put content out, it's a want. It's a covert, it's a hidden want. That's not absolutely a need. Me taking care of my mental health so I can learn to sustain is the need. So putting that pressure on myself to be like, I want to do this, I got to do this, I got to do that, is only taking away from the trajectory of where I hit my mark. Hope that is making sense. Hold on. So our relationship with time, I went outside and did a workout last night, and I think this is like the pollen still stuck in my throat from where I was breathing so hard. Y'all can check out my story for that too. Like I had a really great time with one of my friends, and it's just movement and exercise has become that grounding experience for me to really, 1 hour gets me so much more energy in my day. I also had to learn that because that was not where I started. Exercise was like, I get bored easily, I get lost in it anyways. So our relationship with time is one of the biggest indicators there. So let me see if I can remember, because I don't have a plan or an outline with this. What was my other main point here? I think it was more along the lines of how you create the steps to your vision. Having a vision is great. The fact that there's so many great visionaries in our society today that I am just humbled, and it's quite intimidating for me sometimes to be like, yo, how did you concoct that, right? But one of the biggest difficulties that they have is being able to break down the steps to complete that vision. And then if you're too attached to a certain plan and too attached to a certain outcome, you may miss exactly what that plan needs to be. And how we attach ourselves to in rigidity to that plan is exactly what I'm talking about. The skill of planning is best used when the plan doesn't work. It is best formed, and you get to practice the skill of planning when your plan goes to shit. So if you become too attached to the vision, then you're going to miss the prime opportunity for you to be able to practice the skill of planning to maybe even make that vision more clear, maybe to make that vision even a different vision, because something that happened gave you a passion for what it is that you want to do. I definitely can speak to that because when I started this live this morning, I brought up the vision of in my career being a certain way. And I had an experience at the beginning of COVID that, so not to be vague, but I had a client who passed away. The first meeting that I had with them passed away that evening. It scared the living bejesus out of me as an individual practitioner, losing a client and then having the police call me and the medical examiner call me and asking questions. I was like, yo, what am I doing? Like, do I want to do this? Do I want to do this by myself? And that was the one thing that put me aligned with RightSize Perspective actually being a program that I can lead with, that my expertise can actually speak to food addiction being having a program to help people's relationship with food be what helps them prioritize their mental health, prioritizes their self-care in this life of having to care for other people. And when we start to see that way, I had no idea that that's where I was going. I was just working on my own journey. And then boom, a tragedy led me to something powerful, something that it may not have come to fruition right now, but it's coming to fruition every single day that I practice what I preach, that I make sure I slow down and I remind myself that I have everything that I need, whether it's to make money, to create the program that I want, to send the message to the people that need it. I have everything I need. And if I don't have it right now, and if I'm like fighting for what I don't have, it's because it's going to come to me eventually and I don't need it right now. That one took me a while. It's still something that I have to sit myself down and be like, you know what? It's not supposed to happen right now. That's a hard one. It's a big pill to swallow because I want what I want. I want this to be done. I want this to be what people need. But the reality is that the plan, I have to maybe keep planning because the plan keeps changing. So I hope the takeaway today is really, more encouraging to be gentle with yourselves in this process of how you create a plan for yourself. You see the vision, you're able to hold on to the vision, create a vision board if you really need to, or keep the vision somewhere where prioritized in how you want it to be. But when you come back to your present moment and sitting in that chair of, at your desk and, writing this out, make sure you give yourself the room for the plan to be what it needs to be and for the plan to go in the direction that is in your vision, but it may have a very, what you may want to title as treacherous path to complete that goal. It may not always look like what you want it, but it will always be what you need it. So I'm going to cap right there. That takeaway, I hope I did 27 minutes of, a full circle for yourselves to be gentle. Take your time. You have time. It may seem like time is passing, that you're losing time, but you're gaining perspective. So thank you guys for tuning in today. You have a good weekend. It's going to be a busy weekend for me. I've got clients to see, things to create, but I've got some real fun stuff coming up. Check out my website. I have a speaking event coming up for creative entrepreneurs and how to prioritize your mental health. The details are on my website. I'm super excited. I'm super honored to have been asked to do that. I am still living my own life throughout this process and this journey, and I will be here to help support you guys with whatever you need, whatever insight you may want or need within your own journey. So have a great Friday. Have a great rest of, March for the last 8 or to 10 hours of your day, and I will see you next Friday.